So far, we've talked of what an actor needs to look for in Shakespeare's text to help him. The same point could be made by looking at things a different way round. What must the actor do if he is to help and hold his audience? Let me take you back to something that I said at the beginning. I don't believe that most audiences really listen to a complex text unless the actor makes them do so. I know I don't. I know that my attention wanders if the actors don't hold me. I believe when this happens, the main reason is that the actor is what I would call generalizing, i.e. playing the general state of mind or mood or emotion which the speech suggests to him. It's so easy to play a kind of summary of a speech and not to discover it for the first time it is spoken line by line. This problem particularly comes up with soliloquies and long or set speeches. With them, both actor and audience have to work harder than they do with dialogue. That's because a dialogue contains an obvious story or argument or clash or confrontation. One character persuades, one character resists, and so on. With a set speech, it's very easy for the play to lose its momentum and for the story to become becalmed. So, what's to be done about this? How, within a long can the audience feel the story is still moving along? Here, even more than elsewhere, he must be deeply inside the situation, as we stressed at the very beginning. He must find the language, and the audience must feel that the play is moving on and going somewhere. So he must take them with him. So let's clear and have a look at some examples. Let's look at a famous set speech, marred for us by being so much quoted in anthologies. Portia's The Quality seems to pre-exist because we know it so well. Actually, in context, it's a spontaneous outburst triggered by Shylock's aggression to her in the court. Have a go.
Is your name Shylock?
Shylock is my name.
Of a strange nature is the suit you follow. Yet, in such rule that the Venetian law cannot impugn you should you proceed. Antonio, you stand within his danger, do you not?
Aye, so he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then must the Jew be merciful.
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed.
Let me just stop you for a moment, because we've got a little bit too gentle, and it's to do with you not pressurizing her enough. You see, the little dialogue at the beginning is the trigger to this spontaneous outburst from her, but only if you press on her can she bounce back at you. Take me literally if you will.
I'll press on you.
Okay, that will be nice. Is your name Shylock?
Shylock is my name.
Of a strange nature is the suit you follow. Yet, in such rule that the Venetian law cannot impugn you should you proceed. Antonio, you stand within his danger, do you not?
Aye, so he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then must the Jew be merciful.
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives, and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest God's, when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer should teach us all to render the deeds of mercy.
Good, much better. Now, I said a set speech must move and take the audience along with it. If we feel it has a story and it's going somewhere, we'll go along with it. Now, how does the actor achieve this? Most set speeches break, I think, into three. They pick up something in the immediate situation and respond to it. They then explore the situation or problem, which makes up the bulk of the speech, and they then resolve what's been explored and either come to some conclusion or perhaps decide that there is no conclusion. An obvious example is Shakespeare's All the World's a Stage. I suppose it's the most obvious set speech of all.
All the world's a stage. All the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. Then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. And a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble, reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe, beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history, his second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.
Great. Well, you certainly made me feel I hadn't heard that before.
Very broken up, that wasn't it?
Very broken up, but you made me feel you were doing it for the first time. Thank you. Good. Good. Now let's look at another problem. Some long speeches are written very rhetorically and formally. They have a terrific rhythm which can take over and make it all sound unreal. So let's take a bit of Richard III, where the old Queen Margaret, banished and broken, exults over the miseries of Queen Elizabeth who succeeded her.
Oh, thou didst prophesy the time would come when I would wish for thee to help me curse that bottled spider, that foul bunch-back toad.
I called thee then, vain flourish of my fortune. I called thee then, poor shadow, painted queen, a sign of dignity, a breath, a bubble, a queen in jest, only to fill the scene. Where be thy husband now? Where be thy brothers? Where are thy 2 sons? Wherein dost thou joy? Who kneels and sues and says, God save the Queen? Decline all this and see what now thou art. For happy wife, a most distressed widow, for joyful mother, one that wails the name, for queen a very caitiff crowned with care, for she being feared of all, now fearing one, for she commanding all, obeyed of none. Thus hath the course of justice wheeled about, and left thee but a very prey to time.
That was a good balance of the mixture of the flow and the sweep of the verse and getting a lot of variety out of individual lines. Now, let's stick with this question of taking the audience with one a bit longer. Sometimes Shakespeare explores a single emotional moment and situation with text that at first blush seems literary. And the speaker seems much more articulate than he could possibly be if he was really in the actual situation. In Titus Andronicus, for instance, Titus has just seen his daughter Lavinia with her hand and her tongue cut off. She's just been mutilated and ravished, and Titus himself has just had his hand cut off. Well, one of the problems with such a speech is that in real life the emotion of the speaker would be much greater than his power to articulate that emotion in words. So it's very understandable if an actor confronted with such a speech recoils from the literary content and tries to express the emotion to the full and leaves the words to take care of themselves.
Oh, here I raise this one hand up to heaven and bow this feeble ruin to the earth. If any power pities wretches' tears, to that I call. What? Wilt thou kneel with me? Do then, dear heart, for heaven shall hear our prayers, or with our sighs we'll breathe the welkin dim and stain the sun with fog.
Yet let reason govern thy lament.
If there were reason for these miseries, then into limits could I bind my woes. When the heavens doth weep, doth not the earth o'erflow? When the winds rage, doth not the sea wax mad, threatening the welkin with his big swollen face? And wilt thou have a reason for these coils? I am the sea. How her sighs do blow. She is the weeping welkin, I the earth. Then must my sighs be moved by her tears. Then must my earth with her continued tears become a deluge, overflowed and drowned. For why? My bowels cannot hide her woes, but like a drunkard must I vomit them.
Bravely done. Now, what happened? We got a powerful sense of Titus's feelings, but did we follow what he was saying, or did we listen? Or did the emotion take over and, in a sense, replace the text?
Yes, frankly.
Yes.
How do you know you weren't listening?
I think the key here is perhaps Titus asking in an earlier speech, what shall we do? It's a question, once again, of intentions. I suspect that the only way to play the speech and to make the audience both listen and feel the emotions is for Titus to try to come to terms with the incredible and the impossible. He needs the words to deal with the reality, partly to accept it, partly to shut it out. So let's try it again and find each image with as much difficulty as we can and try to use the words to cope with the emotions. Okay?
Here, I raise this one hand up to heaven and bow this feeble ruin to the earth. If any power pities wretches' tears, to that I call. What? Wilt thou kneel with me? Do then, dear heart, for heaven shall hear our prayers, or with our sighs we'll breathe the welkin dim and stain the sun with fog.
Yet let reason govern thy laments.
If there were reason for these miseries, then into limits could I bind my woes. When the heavens doth weep, doth not the earth o'erflow? When the winds rage, doth not the sea wax mad, threatening the welkin with his big swollen face? And wilt thou have a reason for these coils? I am the sea. Hark, how her sighs do blow. She is the weeping welkin, I, the earth. Then must my sea be moved by her sighs? Then must my earth with her continued tears become a deluge, overflowed and drowned? For why? My bowels cannot hide her woes, but like a drunkard must I vomit them.
Well, I think it does prove the point again. It was much more something I could go with. Now let's take another speech where the emotion of the speaker may also get on top of what's being said. In King Henry IV, Hotspur's widow, Lady Hotspur, is trying to persuade Northumberland, Hotspur's father, not to raise another rebellion. Northumberland didn't join his son in the battle in which he was killed, so he's largely responsible for his son's death. Now, the difficulties here are similar to those in the speech from Titus. A balance has to be found between Lady Hotspur's need to express her grief, her anger with Northumberland, and her wish to persuade him not to go to war. If she lets her emotions carry her away, she may put his back up. So have a go. The emotions must be there, but you must channel them to get what you want.
Oh, yet, for God's sake, go not to these wars. The time was, Father, that you broke your word, when you were more endeared to it than now. When your own Percy, when my heart's dear Harry, through many a northward look to see his father bring up his powers, but he did long in vain. Who then persuaded you to stay at home? There were two honors lost, yours and your son's. For yours, the God of heaven brightened it. For his, it hung upon him as the sun in the grey vault of heaven, and by his light did all the chivalry of England move to do brave acts. So that in speech, in gait, in diet, in affections of delight, in military rules, humours of blood, he was the mark and glass, copy and book that fashioned others. And him, oh wondrous him, oh miracle of men, him did you leave. Never, oh never hold, never,
Oh, never do his ghost the wrong to hold your honor more precise and nice with others than with him. Let them alone. The Marshal and the Archbishop are strong. Had my sweet Harry had but half their numbers, today might I, hanging on Hotspur's neck, have talked of Monmouth's grave.
I shall come back to this question of balancing text and emotion in a later program. The point I want to show here is that in a set speech, the actor always needs to go for the argument. And if he doesn't, he won't take his audience with him. So now let's take an extreme example, a real monster. Let's look at the Archbishop of Canterbury. Tony, he's explaining to King Henry V that his claim to the French throne is lawful. And it's a solemn situation with the council all there, and yet the speech is in part comic. So go for the argument and see if you can make us follow it clearly and keep a balance between the two, juggle two balls in the air of seriousness and comedy. I don't want to say too much about it, but I suppose two other important points to remember are that you'll need variety, because monotony in a long speech is fatal if you stick to one tempo, and you mustn't be too quick or too slow, but to think quickly, and then you'll find the natural tempo. A tall order, have a go.
My learned lord, we pray you to unfold why the law Salic, which they have in France, or should not bar us in our claim.
Well, then hear me, gracious sovereign, and you peers that owe yourselves your lives and services to this imperial throne. There is no bar to make against your highness' claim to France, but this, which they produce from Pharamond, in terram salicam mulieres ne succedant. No woman shall succeed in Salic land, which Salic land the French unjustly glows to be the realm of France, and Pharamond the founder of this law on female bar. Yet their own authors faithfully affirm that the land Salic is in Germany, betwixt the floods of Saler and the Elbe, where Charles the Great, having subdued the Saxons, there left behind and settled certain French, who, holding in disdain the German women for some dishonest manners of their life, established then this law, to which no female shall be inheritrix in Salic land, which Salic, as I said, twixt Elbe and Saler, is at this day in Germany called Meissen. Yeah. Then doth it well appear the Salic law was not devised for the realm of France, nor did the French possess the Salic land until 421 years after defunction of King Pharamond, idly supposed the founder of this law, who died within the year of our redemption 426, and Charles the Great subdued the Saxons and his seat the French beyond the river Saler in the year 805. Besides, their writers say King Pepin, which deposed Childeric, did, as heir general being descended of Blithild, which was daughter to King Clotaire, make claim and title to the crown of France. Hugh Capet also, who usurped the crown of Charles, the Duke of Lorraine, sole heir male of the true line and stock of Charles the Great, to find his title with some shows of truth, though in pure truth it was corrupt and naught, conveyed himself as the heir to the Lady Lingar, daughter to Charlemagne, who was the son of Louis the Emperor and Louis the son of Charles the Great. Also King Louis the Tenth, sole heir to the usurper Capet, could not keep quiet in his conscience, wearing the crown of France till satisfied that fair Queen Isabel, his grandmother, was lineal of the Lady Ermengar, daughter to Charles the aforesaid Duke of Lorraine, by the which marriage the line of Charles the Great was reunited to the crown of France. So that, as clear as is the summer sun, King Pepin's title, Hugh Capet's claim, King Louis's satisfaction, all appear to hold the right and title of the female. So do the kings of France unto this day. Howbeit, they would hold up this Salic law to bar your highness claiming it from the female, and rather choose to hide them in a net than amply to unbar their crooked titles, usurped from you and your progenitors.
Bravo.
I agree with every word of that.
There's one particular kind of set speech which many actors find the hardest problem of all. What should they do with a soliloquy? A situation where a character is almost always alone and seems to be talking to himself. Should it be done to oneself, or should it be done to the audience? Well, there are very few absolute rules with Shakespeare, but I personally believe that it's right 99 times out of 100 to share the speech with the audience, and a grave distortion of Shakespeare's intention to do it to oneself. If the actor shares the speech, it'll work. If he doesn't, it'll be dissipated and it will disappear, and the audience won't listen properly. So let's take some test cases. I'm not trying to find a definitive way of doing a soliloquy. There's no such thing, only the approach to them. Are there, in fact, any rules? Only our three basic points. It must arise out of a situation, it must have a story, and it must be spontaneous. The actor must make the language his own. It must be real. Jane, come and give us a bit of Cressida. It comes at the end of a long scene in Troilus and Cressida, in which her uncle Pandarus tries to persuade her to go to bed with Troilus, who loves her.
Now, you'd like me to do this to myself?
Do it to yourself the first time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Words, vows, gifts, tears, and love's full sacrifice he offers in another's enterprise. But more in Troilus thousandfold I see than in the glass of Pandar's praise may be. Yet hold I off. Women are angels wooing. Things won are done. Joy so lies in the doing.
Hold it there. Thank you. Now, you see what happened? First line or two, one got interested in her and her vanity and her self-absorption. But then the speech got stuck because she went on playing the same thing, and it became generalized and about her vanity rather than making us listen and go with the thoughts that she had to share with us. So now go to the opposite extreme and share it just totally with your audience and show off and flaunt to your audience.
Words, vows, gifts, tears, and love's full sacrifice he offers in another's enterprise. But more in Troilus thousandfold I see than in the glass of Pandar's praise may be. Yet hold I off. Women are angels wooing. Things won are done. Joy's soul lies in the doing. That she, beloved, knows naught that knows not this. Men prize the thing ungained more than it is. That she was never yet that ever knew love got so sweet as when desire did sue. Therefore, this maxim out of love I teach. Achievement is command. Ungained, beseech. Then though my heart's content firm love doth bear, nothing of that shall from mine eyes appear.
Great, that was beautifully shared. But it proves the point, doesn't it? First version, it gets stuck, it gets constipated. Second time, by sharing totally, she takes you along and you go with her. So the story moves on. What do you think?
Well, I think if you're doing a speech on an empty stage, why are you doing it?
I mean, you're not doing it to yourself. You're not telling yourself things that you already know. So the whole point of it must be to share it with the audience, to let them in on what the character's private story is, as being quite separate from her function in the whole story of the play.
Yes, the moral is that just as you share your thoughts with another actor, another character when you're playing a scene, so that process of sharing has to go on when you're left alone.
But it's a wonderful means of getting one up on everybody else, because it's just you and them, and you're saying, look, this is what I'm really thinking, and this is the way I'm going to behave after I finish the speech. So you're going to be in on what my innermost thoughts are.
That's right. So you keep the suspense going.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Hopefully.
Good. Thank you. Now, let's look at a bit of early Shakespeare verse which we heard at the very beginning of our series. Here again, we have a strong rhetorical rhythm, and yet the speaker needs to be very simple and very human. Henry VI is brooding on his situation and his army's situation, engaged in battle with the Yorkists.
This battle fares like to the morning's war, when dying clouds contend with growing light. What time the shepherd, blowing of his nails, can neither call it perfect day nor night. Now sways it this way like a mighty sea, forced by the tide to combat with the wind. Now sways it that way, like the selfsame sea, forced to retire by fury of the wind. Sometime the flood prevails, and then the wind. Now one the better, then another best, both tugging to be victors, breast to breast, yet neither conqueror nor conquered. So is the equal poise of this fell war. Oh God, methinks it were a happy life to sit upon a hill as I do now, to carve out dials quaintly, point by point, thereby to see the minutes, how they run. How many makes an hour full complete? How many hours brings about the day? How many days will finish up a year? How many years a mortal man may live? When this is known, then to divide the times. So many hours must I tend my flock. So many hours must I take my rest. So many hours must I contemplate. Yes?
So many hours must I
So many hours must I sport myself. So many days my ewes have been with young. So many weeks ere the poor fools will ean. So many years ere I shall shear the fleece. So, minutes, hours, days, months, and years, passed over to the end they were created, would bring white hairs unto a quiet grave. Oh, what a life with this. How sweet, how lovely. Gives not the hawthorn bush a sweeter shade to shepherds looking on their silly sheep than doth a rich embroidered canopy to kings that fear their subjects' treachery? Oh, yes, it does. 1,000-fold. It does.
Now, let's have a go at a soliloquy which at first sight seems very hard to follow. It's also a soliloquy in rhyme. In the Midsummer Night's Dream, Helena is lamenting the complexities of her love life, especially for Demetrius, whom she dotes on, but he's in love with her best friend Hermia. So, Sue, come and have a go and make your argument as clear as you can.
Okay.
How happy some or other some can be. Through Athens, I am thought as fair as she. But what of that? Demetrius thinks not so. He will not know what all but he do know. And as he errs, doting on Hermia's eyes, so I, admiring of his qualities, things base and vile, holding no quantity, love can transpose to form and dignity. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, and therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. Nor hath love's mind of any judgment taste. Wings and no eyes figure unheedy haste. And therefore is love said to be a child, because in choice he is so oft beguiled. As waggish boys in game themselves forswear, so the boy, love, is perjured everywhere. For ere Demetrius looked on Hermia's eyne, he hailed down oaths that he was only mine. And when this hail some heat from Hermia felt, so he dissolved, and showers of oaths did melt. I will go tell him of fair Hermia's flight. I will go tell him of fair Hermia's flight. Then to the wood will he tomorrow night pursue her. And for this intelligence, if I have thanks, it is a dear expense. But herein mean I to enrich my pain, to have his sight thither and back again.
I thought that was very clear, Sue.
Yeah?
And what I thought, what was very good was because you were half using the script.
Yeah.
It helped you to work it out as you went. And as you were working it out, we worked it out with you. It's the sort of speech that when one knows too well, it's easy to start generalizing with. But you took me with you, took your audience with you, because you were working it out. And that's
Yes.
something we forget to do sometimes.
It would be quite fun to have done it in travelling, really, to have been walking across the stage
Yeah.
and having, meaning to go off much earlier and being caught, having to...
Yes?
Yeah.
That's right. It'd be a very good way of doing it. That's excellent. Good.
Okay.
Right, thank you. Now, let's look at a different point. What does the actor do if a soliloquy seems to be partly to the audience, partly to himself, and partly to someone else? We'll have a go now at Othello's soliloquy before he kills his wife Desdemona. Here's Desdemona, asleep. And just 2 points. First of all, remember that the speech is very much in monosyllables, and when a Shakespearean speech is in monosyllables, it's always good counsel not to rush it too much, so take your time. But be very clear in it, whether you're talking to Desdemona, or the audience, or yourself, or your friend there. Yeah.
It is the cause, my soul. Let me not name it to you, you chaste stars. It is the cause. Yet I'll not shed her blood, nor scar that whiter skin of hers than snow, and smooth as monumental alabaster. Yet she must die, else she'll betray more men. Put out the light, and then put out the light. If I quench thee, thou flaming minister, I can again thy former light relume, should I repent me. But once put out thy light, thou cunningst pattern of excelling nature, and I know not where is that Promethean heat that can thy light relume. When I have plucked the rose, I cannot give it vital growth again. It needs must wither. I'll smell it on the tree. Oh, balmy breath that almost persuades justice herself to break her sword. One more. One more. Be thus when thou art dead, and I will kill thee and love thee after. One more, and this the last. She wakes.
Most of the soliloquies we've looked at have a strong and clear through line and argument. But sometimes the situation which a soliloquy explores is much more muddled. And sometimes it may be a terrific mixture of, say, comedy and seriousness. So, Judy, come now and let's do Vala's ring soliloquy. Here's your ring.
Thank you.
She's disguised as a boy. Malvolio has brought her a ring from Olivia, who's fallen in love with her. So what are your main feelings when you come to this soliloquy?
Well, it's a wonderful opportunity to share just what a dilemma she's in with the audience, and she actually can speak directly to the audience and say, this is the situation I'm in, and how would you like to it if you were in this situation?
Right. Share, as ever, our word is share. I think if you go for the mixture, share the mixture of the funny side of the situation and the horrors of it, so that it's a mixture all the time of the pain and the comedy.
Yes.
Okay?
I'll try. I left no ring with her. What means this lady? Fortune forbid. My outside have not charmed her. She made good view of me. Indeed, so much that sure methought her eyes had lost her tongue, for she did speak in starts distractedly. She loves me, sure. The cunning of her passion invites me, and this churlish messenger, none of my lord's ring, why, he sent her none. I am the man. If it be so as 'tis, poor lady, she were better love a dream. Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness, wherein the pregnant enemy does much. How easy is it for the proper false in women's waxen hearts to set their forms? Alas, our frailty is the cause, not we. Made of such we be. How will this fadge? My master loves her dearly, and I, poor monster, fond as much on him, and she mistaken seems to dote on me. What will become of this? As I am man, my state is desperate for my master's love. As I am woman, now alas the day. What thriftless sighs shall poor Olivia breathe? Oh, time! Thou must untangle this, not I. It is too hard a knot for me to untie.
A very hard knot to untie indeed. Now, we can't dodge it any longer. What about to be or not to be? If we're in doubt, there's one very good rule to follow. In acting and directing, we must see the complexities, but we must try to be simple. So much has been said and written about Hamlet that it seems at times to bring out a special madness in whoever writes or talks about it. I'm not getting at literary criticism, but listen for a moment to a passage from one of the world's leading theatrical magazines which cater for theatrical practitioners.
Well, this ambiguity is one of the significant aesthetic counterparts of the broad philosophic drift defining the modern age. In theater, Hamlet predicts this epistemologic tradition. The execution of a deed steadily loses way to a search for the personal modality of the deed. So a search for Hamlet's character within the various mandates of his social position, The conflict is not a conflict of equal and contending social properties. Scripture fades in Hamlet against the incandescence of its hero's characterologic vitality. This exemplifies the leading aesthetic problem of the actor in modern theater: the interpretation of action through characterologic, nuance, and rarefaction.
Michael, come and follow that. But where to begin? Why don't you do what we've been trying earlier and try taking it at first to yourself, and let's go through the process of seeing how that works. Okay?
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.
Okay. Now, we see and we observe him, but we don't share. We see someone generally under stress, but do we travel with his thoughts? So now, try it the other way. Share it with us. Everything we've said tonight comes up here. You must take us with you. You must work it out as you go, and don't work yourself up emotionally into the situation. You see clearly, but the words have never been said or thought by any actor ever before. Give us a taste of your rarefaction.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To die. To sleep no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delays, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, that undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience doth make cowards of us all. And thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought. And enterprises of great pitch and moment with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action.
Well, there are obviously an infinite number of ways of interpreting a set speech. Even so, I do believe that some general conclusions can be drawn. It's dangerous to do a long speech too solemnly, for instance, and it doesn't work if the audience stands back and observes the character thinking. The actor must open himself to his audience because he needs to share his problems. In dialogue, a character reaches out to another character, and in a soliloquy, a character reaches out to the audience. There's no great difference between the two. The principle is the same. So the moral is, the text must be shared.
Thank you.